Welcome to Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes. We are back with a talk video. We are going to break down the newest Conquest character, Rey Darkside, look at the developer insights and tips, break down and analyze the kit, trying to highlight the key information, look at the gear requirements, and then start speculating on mods and the squad. Darth Rey arrives as a Darkside First Order Sith attacker, and if you're a longtime watcher of this channel, you know I like to fight through Kyber 2 with fewer GLs than my opponents, so I don't have SLKR, but her arrival means that time is over, that we will join the rest of the player base and stop being stubborn and proving a point about GLs and the Grand Arena. Her arrival is truly an end of an era for this channel. The key attributes: she can attack multiple times with her basic and inflict fear. Grand Arena Omicron, this is going to prevent First Order allies from being defeated until Rey becomes targetable. Lets the team an opportunity to respond to openings. With the tips, Malevolent Lineage can stealth squishier allies, and Rey has a big blow that sounds tied to allies being defeated and the right target. Don't Be Afraid Ami allows First Order with advantage to ignore taunt effects, which may signify that allies that grant advantage will be particularly important on this squad. Now for the breakdown and analysis of the kit. We're recording this about close to the end of the first week of Conquest, and I do find it notable that we didn't have a version of Darkside Rey as the boss in Sector 5. So us not having the basic animation, I think these things may be related. The basic ability, Surrender to Darkness, that's physical damage twice to the target. The attack ignores 50% protection. If the enemy had full health or protection up at the start of this attack, then attack again for a max of 3 attacks total. And we are seeing a lot of protection up lately, so that is probably going to be triggered quite often going up against newer characters. On her turn, if she deals at least 3 instances of damage, then the target is feared, and that is unresistible. And this looks to be a pretty strong basic. We are seeing a lot of recovery in kits these days, so that full health is going to be triggered quite often. The protection up, as we already stated, is going to be triggered quite often. So by applying that fear with the third attack, that means we're going to have a nice control ability on basic. And what I like about fear is that unlike a lot of control debuffs, it can't be cleansed. And with a team like the First Order are a little bit light on AoE abilities. So there are fewer abilities that are going to get rid of the fear by attacking the opponent. The first special, Corrupted Reflection, this is a cooldown of 4. AoE physical damage, then, if there is a defeated enemy, attack the target enemy again. First Order allies are going to gain Retaliate and Retribution. SLKR gains 10% ultimate charge if he is the allied leader. Now, the ult charge is enough of a reason to do this ability early, but there is a reason to save this for the right moment, depending on how effective it's going to be at taking out enemies, because getting that extra attack if this AoE knocks somebody out, that could be conditionally nice. I just don't know if we were going to want to prioritize it. It feels to me like a nice bonus. The second special, Malevolent Lineage, cooldown of 4, a Zeta and an Omicron. AoE true damage split among them. If all allies are First Order and any Kylo is leader, then AoE shock enemies. Leader Kylo is called to assist, then all other non-taunting First Order allies not in the leader slot gain stealth. If SLKR is the allied leader, he gains 5 siphon per enemy and 100% defense for 1 turn. So this sounds like our first turn move. And we don't want any tanks on this squad because the point is for SLKR to be out in the open. The extra defense is going to help him tank and absorb those hits as everybody else goes under stealth. And that's why we don't want that other tank, because we want SLKR to receive the damage. That's the point point of the defense. We don't want to give our opponents an opportunity to ignore SLKR by going after a tank. And we're going to want to use this ability first because he's gaining 5 siphon per enemy. So if we're using it later in the battle, we're going to want to do that as well. But later in the battle, like after a round of turns, maybe an enemy or two has been knocked out. So we're just getting less siphon and it's not charging up SLKR as much. With the Omicron Grand Arena, shock is locked and unresistible. Enemies defeated by this ability can't be revived. AoE remove 100% turn meter from all characters. Enemies with bonus protection, protection up, shield up, reduce their max health and max protection by 20% stacking. That's going to exclude GLs, and that's for the rest of the encounter. If there is any Kylo leader, all first order allies recover 50% health and protection and gain speed up. Usually I like to prioritize unique or leadership abilities for my Omicrons, and the special ability Amis are a little bit lower on my priority list. With this kit, I think this might be the priority Omicron, because this is a big damage and big threat ability that shocked, being locked and unresistible means any buffs are just going to be completely shot down. We're reducing max health and max protection, which is going to just open them up to vulnerabilities with SLKR, and by giving speed up to everybody, the entire squad is just going to start punishing our opponents. And the turn meter removal is just going to set everybody back to 0, which is going to allow characters who are a little bit faster to gain an advantage. So characters like Hux or First Order Officer, who are very easy to make very fast and then throw their turns and abilities around, they're going to be able to start controlling the field. And as we get into the unique Ami is really just about using this ability more. So the abilities themselves are prioritizing using Malevolent Lineage. Our first unique ability, Don't Be Afraid of Who You Are. This is a Zeta and Omicron ability. Rey has plus 25% crit chance and crit damage. Rey's abilities can't be evaded. While Rey has Retaliate, she recovers protection at the end of the turn equal to 100% of the damage received. And while Rey is debuffed, she has plus 50% speed. So already here with this unique, we see a condition with Rey's protection recovery when she has Retaliate. That is already synergizing back to that second special, where putting Retaliate out on the field is going to start making her harder to take out. She starts becoming more survivable with that recovery, which just highlights the import of the second special. Next, if Rey defeats an enemy, excluding summoned units, all allies defeated by that enemy are revived with 100% health. Now that sounds very interesting, but my guess is this condition is going to be less useful in Grand Arena. Most of the characters who we can take out easily are unlikely to be the characters who take out our allies. It's a nice bonus that can help, and if we use it right, it may help banners, but I suspect this mechanic is far more for territory battles and conquest. So this should make conquest more efficient, and I can see it making some of those harder later territory battle phases a little bit more manageable. Next, whenever an enemy without 100% turn meter gains bonus turn meter, reduce their max protection by 5%, 10% if it was a bonus turn, that excludes GLs. That's for the rest of the encounter, and that's going to persist through defeat. So this unique just highlights the threat of using squads that have bonus turn meter mechanics, which may impact some of the Jedi counters to SLKR. For the second Omicron Grand Arena, all other First Order allies with Retaliate recover protection at the end of their turn equal to 100% of the damage received. So that takes that unique condition with Retaliate and grants it to all allies. First Order allies with advantage ignore taunt effects on their turn, and if SLKR was the leader, whenever he enters aggressive stance, the cooldown of Malevolent Lineage is reset. Now this is a good Omicron, but this is what I mean by with the unique armies or special armies or leader armies, how I typically prioritize them. This one is clearly a lower priority than Malevolent Lineage because part of its mechanics is just to make Malevolent Lineage a much more dangerous ability. Also, if you were like me, who has tried to use some of these lifters without their GL, like I have, and proven that SWGOH is pretty awesome under JTR, there are things where this would be an Omicron you'd be skipping if you tried to use Darkside Ray without SLKR. And I do think there's plenty of reason to try that if you happen to be one of the weirdos like me who don't have SLKR, because this is really the only condition within the kit that is specific to SLKR. Now, what I find most valuable to this kit is the advantage mechanic, where the taunt, being able to ignore those when you have advantage, that is going to be pretty powerful. It is going to make some of the other mechanics stronger because you're going to be able to target vulnerable enemies on your opponent's squad, which is just going to make some of these specials and basic abilities more effective. Because with the basic, you want to attack somebody with protection up or full health. If you're stuck behind a taunt and that taunting tank doesn't have protection up or those conditions, it may not get triggered. Or there might be more benefit to landing fear on a particular enemy who's going to be a little bit more of a threat who's protected by a taunt. So it's a good army. It's going to add a lot of survivability. It's going to make everything more effective, but I don't think it's a must-have. Not like the Malevolent Lineage army. Our second unique in our nature, this is another Zeta and Omicron ability. If all allies are first order at the battle start, Ray gains 100% max health. At the start of the encounter, if any Kylo was a leader, Ray is untargetable until all enemies have taken a turn or are defeated. And that's a condition where Malevolent Lineage comes up again, because here you have a situation where when she takes her turn, she'll be able to remove all turn meter with the second special, just increasing the amount of time before all enemies take a turn, and that condition is triggered where Ray becomes targetable. And by targeting the right opponents, that moment of time can just be lengthened with this next condition. Whenever an enemy is defeated, all characters lose 100% turn meter and all first order allies gain advantage for 2 turns. So if you have that first unique army, we have a situation where you can ignore taunt, you can go after the vulnerable characters, knock them out, and keep removing turn meter from your opponent and just preventing Ray from being targetable. Meanwhile, if you have Hux and First Order Officer on the squad, they can start throwing their turn meter abilities around to give the advantage to the First Order squad. Enemies with less than full health have minus 200% critical avoidance. So this is just going to make the attack abilities more effective and put them in a situation where they're easier to take out, which is going to trigger more of these turn meter effects. And whenever an enemy with less than 100% health recovers to full health, they dispel all buffs on themselves. So what we see here are a lot of turn meter effects which start pointing the arrow to me towards JMK being a very important counter to this squad, because JMK shuts down those turn meter mechanics. Now JMK will still be vulnerable to losing those buffs, but that's going to be a whole lot less damaging than all of the turn meter control that we see going on in Ray's kit. Our last Grand Arena Omicron, while Ray is untargetable from this ability, First Order allies can't be defeated. That is pretty crazy. While an enemy is less than full health, they can't recover protection. That is going to make a whole bunch of squads more vulnerable. And whenever a First Order ally is inflicted with a debuff, they lose 1% turn meter once per turn and gain 1% offense stacking for the rest of the encounter. So with Ray, all 3 of these Omicrons are very strong, but I'm going to be going with the second special, then the second unique. Those feel like must-haves, with the first unique being a very strong, very nice bonus, but I will be trying to delay it for a little bit because I don't like to go too low on Omicrons. That's an opportunity to buy some time, but I know a lot of you are just going to triple Ami this character, and she is definitely one who I think is worthy of triple Amis. But one last condition we should highlight is the whenever first order ally is inflicted with a debuff, they lose turn meter and gain 1% offense stacking for the rest of the encounter. That could be very strong, because we need to remember that there's characters like Kylo who, with his Zeta, can self-inflict damage over times. Now, the last condition of this Omicron, we should spend a moment to highlight because it's potentially very strong. Whenever first order ally is inflicted with a debuff, they lose 1% turn meter and gain 1% offense stacking for the rest of the encounter. That could potentially be very strong. We need to remember characters like Kylo, because Kylo, with his unique ability, is self-inflicting damage over time at the end of his turns when he uses a special ability. So he can be just ramping up his offense and becoming a threat. And it means he's a character that isn't going to be reliant on the enemy to make him strong and to trigger the conditions of this Omicron. With Darkside Rey, her gear is pretty standard. A slight Cairo choke point at gear 9 where we have 2, but otherwise pretty typical for a character up to gear 12. For relics, she's slightly above average with a couple fusion furnaces and med packs along with the Cairo prod finisher, but they're certainly worse characters to gear, and these days most of this is not a problem. It's the signal data that tends to create issues. And honestly, I miss the days of hard to gear characters because that was always an advantage to me. With the ideal squad, if you have SOKR, and I will have SOKR within the next few days, Hux, First Order Officer, and Kylo Ren. We've already broken down the key mechanics as to why, but because with Darkside Rey removing the turn meter from everybody, characters who can swap turns become very valuable, particularly characters like Hux and First Order Officer who can be made very fast. That means they can be throwing their turns over to Rey or over to Kylo or over to whoever in order to capitalize on these moments of vulnerability and to make sure that this squad keeps knocking out their opponent to keep removing turn meter. I think Kylo is going to be strong because of the mechanics that are going to allow him to have stacking offense. We're going to just want more offensive threat on this squad because Hux and First Order Officer, they're not bringing damage. They are here for turns and to help along advantage a little bit. What we don't want to have are tanks. So Kylo Ren Unmasked and First Order Stormtrooper, they are eliminated as options because we want the condition where when the stealth is triggered, SOKR is left out in the open so that he can absorb all those damage while he has that bonus defense. Now, in regards to these other First Order characters, like the pilots, I just don't think they're going to be bringing enough to be under consideration. Same with Fox. They don't have enough overlapping synergy. We could look at Phasma because of the advantage mechanics, but there's enough other means of getting advantage. I don't think bringing her along just for advantage is going to be worthwhile enough. Sith Trooper, though, is the one character that you could consider and put in place instead of Kylo. Just because Sith Trooper, they're going to have a little bit more damage, a little bit more mechanics that could be valuable here, but I'd still prefer Kylo because it feels like that second unique Omicron is designed with Kylo in mind. And with that, the 6GL era of this channel will be coming to an end. We will be joining everybody to be able to take advantage of Darkside Rey as soon as she becomes available. But one of the reasons I'm excited for her is because her being added to the game means the future of a potential Darth Jar Jar is a little less fantasy than it was before, especially when we've seen Darth Jar Jar in the Lego Star Wars. Over in the corner, we'll have the Conquest content. You can check out any of that. We have videos on each sector, but we also have an overview video that breaks down my thoughts on Conquest prior to its start. So the sector videos will have how I actually handled things, the things that I figured out, what was most efficient. You can get an idea of my thinking in a single video with that squad overview. But we'll wrap it up right there. Thank you for watching. Be excellent to each other, everybody. This is Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes.